Let it begin!
Blood for the blood god. Skulls for the skull throne. Milk for the cornflakes. The creed of corn being overused to death. Anger, which, far sweeter than trickling drops of honey, rises in the bosom of a man like smoke. Homer. Anger is a killing thing, it kills the man who angers. For each rage leaves him less than he had been before. It takes something from him. Louis L'Amour. The important thing in life is not victory but combat. It is not to have vanquished but to have fought well. Pierre de Coubertin. War is the father of all. Heraclitus. Who was the first that forged the deadly blade? Of rugged steel his savage soul was made. Tibullus. War does not determine who is right, only who is left. Bertrand Russell. Special K in all his glory, sitting comfortably on his skull throne, being pissed off at everyone and everything. Introduction. Khorne, also known as Karnath, Arka, Korga, Jorn, Ka, the Bloody-Handed, the Axe Father, the Blood Wolf, the Great Cornholio, Special K, the Wolf Father, Frowny Face McMurderaxe, Sergeant Slaughter, the Lord of Fighters, the Parapelagax Sociopath, Mega Satan, definitely not fucking Cain and 8,870 other names, is the Chaos God of War, Murder, Savagery, Hatred, Rage, Wrath, Battle, and Manliness. He is also the mofo that the Klingons worship. As well as this, he symbolizes courage, athleticism, determination, daring, discipline, sportsmanship, honor, impulsiveness, and struggling onward in the face of any odds. But mostly he's simply about being angry. He is commonly held to be the strongest chaos god by default, and is associated with wolves and powerful hunting dogs, as well as lions and bulls. For another reason that is likely inspired by occultism, Khorne's sacred number is 8, and thus, his followers tend to organize themselves into groups of 8s and its multiples. Fun fact, this also means that the names of Khornate demons are usually comprised of 8 syllables. Khorne, by virtue of being the most powerful chaos god, is also the most powerful general divinity in both iterations of Warhammer. In both versions of Warhammer, his followers are characterized by an overbearing need to spill blood and engage in honest battle, as well as a violent code of martial honor and a survival of the fittest approach to morality. They tend to be dutiful, as well. But said duties involve whacking their axes into their enemy and painting their blood all over villages, gargling their blood as mouthwash, if only because Khorne's only real command is to spill worthy blood in his name. This is where Khorne and Slaanesh generally clash as enemy gods. While Khorne instills discipline, honor and a sense of selfless duty towards his followers to obey a single purpose, that is spill blood in his name, Slaanesh is the polar opposite. Slaanesh instead tells her followers to do whoever they want for their own selfish pursuits for pleasure, not caring the consequences of such acts. That is using your authority to hoard food from your starving citizens, so you could indulge in bottomless gluttony every day. This is also why Khorne is at odds with Tzeentch. Tzeentch sees things like honor and discipline as unnecessary hamstrings towards one's advancement and ups that everything is on the table when one wishes to further their position. That is, why duel your Chaos Lord for his position when you could arrange for an accident to happen to him instead? Sure, it's a low blow, but if your lord was too stupid to not see that betrayal coming, was he really deserving your loyalty? The same can be said for his disdain of sorcery. Tzeentch thinks that mortals using the power of the gods themselves is fair game in their pursuit of progress so long as you can control it. While Khorne thinks that using anything else but your own strength alone means you are weak and his survival of the fittest ideal has no place for you. Khorne also has the distinction of being the only chaos god, or any god for that matter, whose word you can take at face value. They don't realize that disdain for scheming and backstabbing isn't the same as being stupid. Nor do they realize that overcomplicating things is actually the worst thing a planner can do. The more necessary variables of a plan, the easier it is for something to break the entire plan. That said, Tzeentchian plans have divination included into them, eliminating most tactical miscalculations, unless Tzeentch wanted it to happen. So you actually want results? Be practical. Involve only as many steps as you need, i.e. beat someone up until they're reduced to a bloody smear on the ground. Basically, Khorne isn't a stupid brute, he's actually pretty smart. The god of battles knows a thing or two about tactics and warfare. 1. Straightforward approach to anything. Simply put, break everything in half. Which means that it all rides on an all or nothing deal. If his battering ram approach doesn't work, there's little to be done to salvage the situation beyond everyone dying a glorious death. Usually this isn't the case for most battles. The Khornate's overwhelming need to quench their bloodlust gets in the way of reorganization. Of course, if things go according to plan, there are only few things that can stop the demonically possessed no brakes hate train. If Korn had a voice actor, it would be Brain Blessed. Yes, Brain Blessed apparently.
Down the alleyway, Mrs. Holmes, and she's going to report me for saying bugger, you know. Oh, just wait till I see your mother. You're in real trouble. Oh, I say, well, if you're going to go and see her, then tell her this bugger-shaped, funk-shaped, fucking sphincter, arsehole up your ass, up your cunt. Fuck you sideways, you fucking boring fucking whore. Fuck off, you cow. So go and fucking repeat that to my mother.
The big K in all his glory, contemplating on whose rectum he is going to shove his chain axe into with extreme prejudice. Spoiler, it's everyone. Appearance. Korn is described as resembling a giant, iron-hued warrior clad in red armor, with a massive sword and a winged helm that conceals a snarling face like that of a wolf. This humanoid form could be seen as something darkly meaningful, were it not for the fact that more or less everyone in both settings is conveniently human-shaped. Of course, most artists at GW forget that he's supposed to look a giant chaos warrior and instead make him look like an overgrown bloodthirster on a chair. The first depiction of Korn in Warhammer art. Korn and his worship. Korn is the easiest god ever to worship, where other more pacified gods may demand you to memorize overly long prayers and hymns, or to build huge houses of worship and other such unmanly bullshit. Korn is venerated with one thing and one thing only: the time-honored tradition of hack and slash. Korn is worshipped on the battlefield. His hymns are the sound of steel on steel. His sacraments are the blows of hammer and axe. His only prayer the bellowing of the walkery blood for the blood god. Skulls for the skull throne, and his libation is the blood spilled in his name. In essence, you worship Korn by being a good warrior. And as a warrior, you'll find your interests and his tend to generally align. He wants death but isn't picky on who, and you want to live to fight another day. Thus, the mere act of preserving your life will earn the pleasure of the god of battle. However, Korn is one of those honorable war gods, so don't think that beating your enemies by anything other than sheer strength, skill and aggression will make him happy. And for the love of Sigma Emperor, don't try to cheat by picking fights with the weak or helpless or by giving him baby skulls. Korn expects a form of savage, Viking-esque dignity from his followers and for them to be generally manly. This means you have to fight worthy opponents and those generally able to at least hold up a sword. Only after the worthwhile enemies are out of the way. Then you can gorge yourself on the blood of women and children all you want, or make them fight amongst themselves and recruit the survivors, or enslave them, or whatever. Most of the writers forget this, thinking that Korn really gives no fucks about what you kill, and it makes Korn snarl in anger. Though he continues to send his flesh hounds to hunt down those who flee and abandon their brothers on the battlefield, be they chaos or non-chaos. Aside from that, and obviously never backing down from a fight, Korn has no commandments whatsoever, but deviating from the aforementioned in the slightest is begging for the flesh hounds to tear your ass apart. Such as it is, it would be incorrect to think Korn doesn't have priests dedicated to him. Though, being a warrior god, these priests tend to be warriors themselves and are often marked by their god. In essence, the only difference between them and a Chaos Marauder Space Marine is several pounds of armor. In Warhammer Fantasy, these priests are called Blood Fathers, and in lieu of magic that is gifted to their priests by other gods, Korn just gives Holy-shit awesome fighting skills and visions of bloodshed. In Age of Sigmar, they are called Slaughter Priests and they basically lead by example, killing while screaming out Korn's name. If the killing is good enough, Korn will empower the priest and all his allies, but if the killing is unworthy, the priest himself will feel Korn's wrath. Korn is also venerated by working brass into your armor and weapons and donning fashionable high collars. Occasionally, a warrior so pleases Korn that he gifts him with specially made ones that in addition to looking fabulous can also grant total fucking immunity to magic. Anyway, Korn is worshipped by warriors, generals and basically anyone who likes battle. His chosen Space Marines Legion is of course the World Eaters. In Warhammer Fantasy, the Norskans tend to venerate him with the greatest piety, especially the Eastling tribe, who are Korn's most devoted servants in fantasy. Korn's take on magic. As posted by an Anon some time ago, he perfectly summed up what Korn's opinion on magic is: fuck wizards. Okay, here's what the fuck wizards thing means. Note that the hate of Seekers, Wizards etc is pretty much the exact same and works by the same logic for both Cornets and the Sisters of Battle, Black Templar etc. It's a Conan-esque kind of swords and sorcery thing. Cornets hate wizards for trivializing encounters with a single spell and overshadowing fighters. They hate turning what should be a military endeavor into a weird wizard show where people turn into frogs. They hate Slaaneshi for the same reason. They take what should be a wholesome murder fest and make it into something creepy and weird. What with them discomporting themselves with the dead and all that. In realms of chaos, it's entirely possible for a librarian or wizard to go to Khorne. They just refrain from using their powers, and only use their sea magic in combat to resist spells from that point onward. They are okay with laser beams. They are okay with sniper rifles. They are okay with flaming swords. They are okay with running people over with tanks. They are okay with chemical gas. They are okay with exterminators. They are okay with holocausts. They are okay with blitzkriegs. They are okay with honorable duels at dawn. They are not okay with turning people to frogs, mind controlling people, raining glitter dust from the skies to blind everyone, raising armies of zombies to do the killing for you, and so forth. They are not okay with someone pointing their finger and you dropping dead. They are okay with rituals to summon demons. They are okay with navigating the warp without crashing into suns. They are okay with sending astropathic messages. They are okay with chaining wizards up and forcing them to eternally forge magic items on pain of death. You may consider it hypocritical that Khornites are okay with blatantly unfair technological murder, but not okay with blatantly unfair mind magical murder. But the point, or at least one interpretation, is that wizards sick as fucking cheat. They do. They steal the power of the warp for their own ends, as long as they stay in line, and do nothing but permit the warrior to enact his craft. Fine, let them live, albeit in terror, enslaved by chains of brass until the day they are no longer useful, at which point their skulls can join Khorne's throne. But stealing the god's own fire and using it to do what mortals should do through their own skill and strength is unacceptable. Remember that technology is completely valid to Khorne. Stealth is completely valid to Khorne. Skill is completely valid to Khorne. Cleverness is completely valid to Khorne. The nuclear bomb and other innovations that come after it could be seen to be unfair, but it is a mortal invention. Mortals should give honor to Khorne by murdering each other through the sweat of their brow. The scientist who devises new ways to kill is a son. His work can be put to any other use, enriching human life, ending hunger, fighting diseases, answering great questions. But the scientist who devises new bombs and weapons is, in his own way, a champion of Khorne. He takes his limitless human potential and nobly limits himself to new ways to kill. Whether you kill with a sword or a bomb, you are killing using good old-fashioned mortal strength and genius. You aren't stealing warp energy from the gods in the form of a fireball and cravenly calling it your own. The forger of enchanted weapons, though deserving of slavery and abuse as all wizards are until the day they die, is an ideal symbol. It is fitting that spell energy be subjugated to and entombed within cold steel, just as wizards deserve to be subjugated to warriors until they lie cold and headless in the ground or else burnt to ash. The magic weapon is a symbol of my superiority to magic. The jury is still out on whether or not Khorne is okay with magically imbued people. Blood for the blood god. Skulls for the skull throne. When the galaxy burns, we will define righteousness. Too long didn't read magic is unmanly. Grab a sword or a 16-inch battleship cannon, if that's your thing, and go kill like real men do already. Khorne and other chaos gods, as a rule, Khorne despises Slaanesh because they are an effeminate milksop who can't grow a beard or swing an axe like they've got a pair, even though Slaanesh probably has the biggest pair. But less on that, and also because he personifies acting outwardly, i.e. seeking the deaths of others, while Slaanesh acts inwardly, i.e. seeking their own pleasure. Khorne also finds Slaanesh's obsession with luxury and torture wasteful and dishonorable. Slaanesh is about living it up while Khorne is about tearing it the fuck down. Khorne also hates Tzeentch, though they are not fundamental rivals, because his reliance on magic is seen as a sign of weakness and his desire not to face his foes in person is decried by Khorne as cowardly. Khorne sees his penchant for deceit and trickery as dishonorable. Also, Khorne prefers muscles over books, plus Tzeentch is a huge it. Khorne thinks he hates Nurgle also, because the fat fuck doesn't even try to get shit done. Thus, his embodiment as sloth runs contrary to the active, vital aspect of Khorne, but he's all for death if it's by homicide or genocide. Of all the chaos gods, Khorne actually hates Malel the least. For one thing, he respects the lost god for sticking to his guns. He hates the other gods, wants them dead, and is actively working towards that goal. Since Nurgle just sits there being a scabby procrastinator, Tzeentch just has to have his fingers in everyone's business, and Slaanesh is fucking Slaanesh, no literally. Essie is fucking him herself right now. Go look if you don't believe me. This is something Khorne can sympathize with. Also, Malil is the only Chaos God to put up a halfway decent fight when Khorne manages to find him, which would mean that they would be best buds if Malil wasn't a self-destructive, omnicidal lunatic. In short, he hates everyone and pissed at everyone, including you even if you worship him. Usually it's a matter how pissed he is at you, and they hate him too. Except for Nurgle, who's too nice to hate anyone. Except Singe, the know-it-all, indecisive, overthinking, birdie bastard. Khorne and non-chaotic gods, well, Ulrich is his little brother and they tend to get along rather well. Ulrich still ridiculing Khorne over the fact that one of his greatest champions, Hargrath, got his head smashed in by Ulrich's Ulrich. Khorne usually replies by pointing out that Storm of Chaos isn't canon anymore. Not that that stops Ulrich. Khorne and Ulrich often get into arguments over which one of them is more Viking, with Khorne usually winning by pointing out that his top worshippers actually are Vikings and that he has a Valkyrie. They also settle this with arm wrestling and drinking contests. There's a lot of belligerence, but you can sense the brotherly love underneath. Indeed, it's kind of a Ryoken relationship. Despite both being war gods, Khorne has a poor relationship with Mimidia. Khorne, despite being a master of tactics and sieges and the finer points of warfare, vastly prefers a manly head-on charge, and Mimidia's sissy planning approach to warfare therefore offends Khorne. Most meetings between the Blood God and the Maiden of Strategy end with the Blood God fuming impotently because his strict code of martial honor does not permit him to hit girls or pull their hair, and retreating to his treehouse. Khorne is the only Chaos God who tolerates Sigma because he thinks he's pretty badass and respects the idea of a mortal man becoming a god. That in Sigma's comic book series, Sigma the Emperorian, has great splash pages of fights and no swords. However, this tolerance is only one-sided, and while Khorne respects him, it doesn't mean he won't try to put an axe in his head for being an sworn enemy of chaos. When asked about the Emperor, Khorne usually responds with a streaming torrent of bloody curses and oaths which causes a bloody froth to start leaking from his helmet. In short, he is remarkably indifferent to the old man. Ironically, they share many of the same beliefs. They both disliked Seekers, they both have a kick-ass thrones, and they both have units dedicated to close combat. Hell, even the Emperor's head is a skull. What's not to like? Khorne is utterly sick and tired of anyone who dares associate him with 40 Kane. Before eviscerating anyone who makes that connection, he will often give a short PowerPoint presentation, explaining how Kane is an honorless god of murder and sadism while he himself is a god of honorable and forthright battle and courage, and how sadism is contrary to his code. Khorne indeed used to be about honorable combat, but now he's just about mindless violence and hating everyone for either piss poor reasons or for no reason at all. Goddammit, GW. Khorne then reiterates that Kane's elfishness and love for scantily clad women is sickening and makes him more like Slaanesh. Of course, this is just a front on Khorne's part. Kane's love of war combined with his elfness and that his most ardent worshippers are scantily clad women proves Kane to be the secret love child of Khorne and Slaanesh. Sundir Confis sounds of violent, painful evisceration. Who dares? In my own page, of all things, fuck yeah, will search your feelings, you know it to be true. That being said, Kane does have a dual nature in fantasy thanks to being worshipped by dark elves and paid respect to by high elves, where one side is indeed honorable and just wants to keep fighting and being badass, which means Khorne can tolerate him approximately half the time. The fact that both are patrons of Blood Bowl teams is usually the common ground, with Kane and Khorne trashing some other god's house to watch on game nights while downing can after can of blood wheezers and shoveling dwarf rinds in their faces. Kane periodically tries to invade the realm of Khorne whenever the corner team beats the Dark Elf team, with such meetings ending with Khorne individually breaking every bone in his body and spitting on the pain-racked heap. When Kane's team beats Khorne's, Khorne takes out his aggression by beating the fuck out of Slaanesh while Dark Elves go on safari hunting Khorne's worshippers. Khorne has absolutely no patience for the Horned Rat, who is a favorite of Nurgle and Sinch respectively. It's a weak vermin whose very existence pisses him off. As a result, Khorne is much more fond of Sotek, who encourages killing the fuck out of Skaven whenever they appear, and is also a fan of blood sacrifice. The fact that Sotek wants hearts and cares nothing for skulls is reassuring since they don't intrude on each other's fetish. This fondness is entirely one-sided. Like the other Chaos gods, Khorne has no fucking clue what the Great Maw is. However, it doesn't seem to complain when ogres worship Khorne, so he's got nothing against him, her, it, shklim, whatever, the big god thing that wants to eat. The pantheon of the Tomb Kings mostly stick to themselves, so Khorne only knows they exist. Khorne is impressed with the Bretonnian race by the fact they're the epitome of honor and glorious valor. On the other hand, their entire race has been tricked by a single fucking elf goddess into doing their every command, which fills Khorne with incomprehensible fury. As it stands, the first being that's going to get the axe when Khorne manages to get an avatar to manifest in the material plane is Lilith. Mork and Gork and Mork are Khorne's old drinking buddies. They piss him off more than any other beings in existence, but after a good 3-way beatdown and a few billion cases of squig beer he realizes they're alright company. Khorne has a feeling that he'd get along with the gods of the dwarfs, but even their introductions being long-ass winded descriptions of their primary worshippers and their lineages irritate him so much he can't even get into a conversation with them. One of them is still giving his own introduction, and has been for about 20,000 years or so now, and he hasn't even reached the changes that have happened since he started. Unable to make him aware of what's going on around him, Khorne simply moved him into the guest room and bricked it off with a wall of skulls. As for the bugs, Khorne hates them especially due to them not having real blood, just vile lineage. His portrayal in Warhammer Fantasy, he's a halfway mythologically accurate version of Odin, whose very name means fury and one translation means frenzy. You could also make the case that Khorne is Thor minus any protective instincts towards humanity, as both are wailing vortices of blood and spit who are associated with the color red and its connotation of anger. No, that's it. Get the fuck out. He's an axe crazy, psychopathic, evil as balls demonic version of Odin. So basically the Norse god of wisdom, with wisdom actually treated the way Vikings would have recognized. Currently there's a bit of a debate about how much of Odin he represents, see discussion page, so this bit will list the similarities and some of the differences. Well, for one thing, chaos worshippers in Warhammer Fantasy actually are Vikings. Read about them here. Secondly, Khorne is closely associated with wolves in that setting one of Odin's names literally translates to battle wolf, and even has a wolf-like pet in Karanak, thus fulfilling a role similar to Freaky and Jerry, or more closely, Garma. Also, it's revealed in Night of the Realm that Khorne owns 2 hunting wolves, giant fleshhounds called Garma and Gorma, with whom he partakes in a wild hunt across the heavens. Another point of similarity is that both Odin and Khorne are war gods explicitly connected with berserker rage. They have their own warrior cults associated with them who fight with said rage, and Odin's Ulfhildr are practically the same as Khorne's chosen in both form and function. Additionally, thanks to Vorkir, Khorne also has a Valkyrie to further the similarity between him and Odin. This was inevitable, of course, given that the Warriors of Chaos are indeed an evil version of the Vikings, as has already been stated. It should also be noted that Vorkir's similarity to the Valkyries is not a superficial one. She is actually referred to as the Sword Maiden of the Blood God in the Wok Codex, and is Khorne's chooser of the slain who carries those worthy champions and warriors of his to fight on in the Blood God's halls after death. Finally, we got a glimpse of his neck of the Realm of Chaos in the Vorkir novel written by Sarah Cockwell. It was basically Chaos Valhalla, and here's some of his quotes. A cleaved head no longer plots, a head stuck on a pike no longer conspires, put to the sword they who disagree. Now for the differences. Aside from the obvious physical ones, Odin also screes, it's woman's magic taught to him by friggin' Freya. He's got the rage, yeah, but he's also all about fate and averting Ragnarok. Directly opposed to Khorne's goals, even if he knows he can't stop it since fate works that way. We see this in the Havamol, Grimnismal, the Voluspa, and the Lokasena. Hell, in Lokasena, we learn he cross-dresses, i.e. was tied into shamanic practices. Indo-Europeans have a thing for seers in drag. He can also get to Tsinj levels with his planning, and Odin's perfectly fine with runic magic, whereas Khorne hates that shit. Champions of Khorne, because most fat guys are idiots and new fags who likely don't know that another Warhammer existed long before bolters and power armor, and this makes the blood god snarl in anger. Khorne the betrayer, embodiment of crazy awesome and patron saint of fun guys everywhere. Khorne is Khorne's greatest mortal champion in 40k and has a wholly deserved reputation as a team killing nutso. Once upon a time, Khorne was a straight-laced, meticulous assault captain of the World Eater's 8th Company, but after a certain chain of events dedicated himself wholly to Khorne, thus becoming one of the most fucking lethal warriors in the galaxy, as well as probably the most religiously devoted of Khorne's servants. Also notable for shattering 2 entire Space Marine legions by himself with a flamethrower in a single night. Despite this, since his first appearance where he was no different from other berserkers, he became more and more cool-headed when not in combat, and even then there are moments when he is cool-headed in combat. Angren he gets shit done. Khorne's foremost demon prince alongside Doombreed. Period. Doombreed, Khorne's greatest demon prince ever, and possibly either Genghis Khan or Turgis the Devil Iril, probably Genghis Khan. Turgis the Devil's infamy mostly came from cowardly tactics. He attacking churches because non-combatants like clergymen and monks didn't put up the best fights and to steal all the holy relics and decoration made from precious metals. Notable for launching an actually successful Dark Crusade that wiped out 2 Space Marine chapters, which is more than a certain armless failure has pulled off. Svein Wolfbard even in 40k Khorne's chosen are Vikings. Svein Wolfbard is motherfucking badass Chaos Terminator Space Wolf Chaos Lord who grew tired of the Imperium's sickening effeminate inability to get shit done and the Space Wolves' sickening fur fetishes and instead decided to dedicate himself to a god worthy of his cacassery. He thus became a badass Chaos Lord dedicated to Khorne because a berserker god of war who likes axes meshes well with Vikings and slaughtered a shitton of space wolves despite being outnumbered and escaped Harold Deathwolf. He is currently rampaging throughout the Imperium. He has the best facial hair in all of 40k. Krala Chaos Lord from Winter Assault notable only for making idiotic statements and utilizing sorcerers in his warband when there's some possessing to be done. Also has a weird way of saying drown. As Arakiris, a librarian who somehow became a champion of Khorne and who ascended to demonhood. Presumably, his speaking skills were great enough that the Blood God was able to give him slight leeway in regards to the no seeker rule. Likely because he was a philosopher of carrion and slaughter, showing Khorne's way as freedom. Freedom in meaningless, in mindlessness, which he accuses the functionings of the universe of. Khorne loves that stuff. Existentialism for skulls, especially when it's an arch traitor responsible for the deaths of billions. Then declaring openly his allegiance of chaos to his fellow Marines as he is about to ascend as one of the most powerful demon princes ever. A seeker who uses psychic powers to bring about good old kinetic exterminators. Their reputation to raise covered cults of slaughter, discover their lust for combat and seek to encompass it, and ultimately be the poster child of Khornist existentialism is too good of a chance for Khorne to pass up. Who either wins against the galaxy or gets to devour Kira's soul in a good long blood brushing and probably still make a good greater demon of Khorne out of him. Probably the one and only chaos tactical genius who could actually lead a Black Crusade properly. That's another reason Khorne likes him. Kira's no funny business style of simply tearing a sector apart however possible tends to draw other chaos god devotees under the wing of a corner champion. Here is the speech of doom that he gives the player's army before the last level of the game or per canon. The Blood Ravens following Captain Diomedes before the climax.
Faithful, enlightened, ambitious brethren. In but a single decade, a few mere swipes of the pendulum, we have gathered a sacrifice to Khorne that will be made legend. Though it was a simpler, weaker voice that illuminated me during my centuries upon the judgment of Carrion, it was Khorne's messenger who showed me the true path of freedom from a pathetic corpse emperor. And what is this path, this meaning, this purpose to which we gather the skulls of our foes? It is nothing. There is no meaning, no purpose. We murder, we kill. It is mindless savagery. This universe is mindless. In mere hours, billions will die. Innocent, guilty, strong and weak, honest and deceitful, all of them. They will scream, they will burn, and for no purpose but that mighty Khorne may revel in their bloodshed. And united in this void of purpose, fear, or duty, we shall at long last be free! Blood for the Blood God! Skulls for the Skull Throne! Let the galaxy burn!
Also notable as the single longest to fucking kill boss in the history of the Dawn of War series other than Ulka. Not that we haven't found ways to cheese him in under 5 minutes, namely Tyrannid spamming warriors with venom upgrades alongside Hive Lord with his anti-demon gun still. Pure undiluted awesome. In fantasy, Vorkia the bloody pissed off badass Valkyrie who chooses who will fight on in the halls of the Blood God after they die in glorious battle. She managed to kill a motherfucking demon prince as a lowly, unmarked, unaugmented human in single combat to earn Khorne's favor, cut its fucking head off, and then carried it back to the north to place at the foot of the skull throne, and then she died on the way. But Khorne was so impressed by this badassery, pissed off by her death, he resurrected her as a fucking demon princess. Now she flies around the battlefields of the world slaughtering anything that looks at her funny and bearing Norsemen to the Khorne's place for a glorious afterlife of fighting and drinking. She is also far more attractive than anything of Slaanish's menagerie, much to the Prince of Pleasure's eternal rage and the Bloodfather's great amusement, primarily due to having hair. Galmahod Vitner aka Billy Squidgens, a Chaos Lord of Khorne who managed to almost kill Gotrek fucking Gurnison in a fight. Nuff said. Hrothgar Demon Axe, a Chaos Lord who only had his rules and miniatures released at a game's day. He had the stat line of a bloodthirster. His miniature also depicts him throttling an elf, which makes him a good person. Arbol the undefeated, nicknamed Arbol the easily defeatable due to his rules from Champions of Chaos having been shockingly awful. Arbol's been effectively retconned out of existence under the excuse that he's journeyed into the realm of chaos to challenge Khorne himself to a fight. Good luck with that. Scylla and Fingrim, the greatest you know whatever to walk the earth. Scylla was a Chaos Lord of Khorne who got too many mutations before his time and evolved into a YKW. But he's the most baddest YKW ever, and is a leadership 10 general. Which is impressive considering the only thing he can say is "Kill for Khorne! Kill for Khorne! Kill for Khorne!" Chaos Lord Valmisgal, a Chaos Lord whose blood has turned to liquid bronze. He is responsible for the stalking brass bull of Neln and the great raid into the Misty Mountains. It is also alleged he ate his own penis. Varmir Isling, a Norscan king and champion of Khorne who destroyed the Norse dwarf hold of Krakadrak. Managed to get a fucking demon prince to work for him. Slaughtered a metric fuck ton of Norse dwarfs, roughly 8 times the manliness of a regular dwarf and thus worth 24 space wolves. Also rode a Motherfucking chariot pulled by skinless bears. Egilsteibjorn, a Norscan high Jarl of the Skeeligs and probably the greatest epitome of manliness a chaos warrior devoted to Khorne can achieve. He slew a lot and took names. Kicked Bretonnian asses. Sexed many women yet never got a proper heir, only daughters. It was so bad for him that he adopted a boy that became later his personal shamanistic seer and advisor. That is until he banged a Kurgan sorceress that was prophesied by said shaman to bear Egil's son. Yet the damn cheese-eating surrender monkeys took her and his unborn son away. Which he answered them with apocalyptic rage and titanic slaughter, added that said sorceress wanted to sacrifice the unborn child for immortality, actually made this a good situation. And thus there was an epic campaign to retrieve the boy. Wields 2 badass flaming axes called Gama and Gorma. Really dislikes the Lady of the Lake and other southerner gods. So manly he is that he let a Grail Knight stab him only to throw back his sword to him. Also known for embodying Khorne's tactical take on war, which he mercilessly used against the Bretonnian knights that stubbornly charged his warriors head on until said knights realized that they were duped and slaughtered in seconds. Fun Khorne facts. Interestingly, the word Khorne in ancient Cypriot Greek literally means to shit blood. KH. To force outward. On. Back passage. Blood. Doombreed, Khorne's second demon prince servant, might actually be Genghis Khan himself. Khorne's color scheme red, brass and black is almost the same as the German flags and Soviet Russia's flags color scheme, just replace brass with gold, and brass and gold are already fairly similar in color. Hitler and Stalin were allies of convenience and then turned on each other in World War II. Remember, he cares not from whence the blood flows. Khorne's looking for ways to incorporate dinosaurs into his armies, due to the sheer amount of rip and tear they can unleash on their enemies. He's unbelievably pissed that he hasn't managed to get any yet who gave it away. Khorne secretly blatantly hates everyone who kills the defenseless in his name. He'd plot ways to kill them, but he's too mad to do that. So what else is new? Khorne was just able to stand watching Jurassic World once it got going due to the Indominus Rex and how it made everything else look like faggots. He raged when it died. He's looking for its skull cause he wishes he could have it as one of his servants. Sounds of swords and blood, faggot. Why couldn't Khorne just seek the skull of the Mosasaurus that killed it? Or Rexy? T-Rex is classic. I hear you say to that. I answer that cause without the Mosasaurus then Rex Walder died. Khorne isn't sure whether or not he hates cultist Chan, due to the fact that she can't do anything except scream about capturing EET for chaos and get purged, and b the fact that she's so good at spreading rig amongst various unlucky meat sacks and fat guys, and that indecisiveness makes him foam at the mouth in an unending rage. Khorne practically invented flipping the table when you lose at card games, or it goes too slowly. He does this whenever the major warp entities play cards in the formless wastes. Followers of Khorne actually have the ability to pull off Lee the Eldred level Dick style moves in battle. They just choose not to do this. Khorne wanted Cetra the Imperishable as one of his servants once. However, Cetra won't ever serve Khorne, even going so far as to give all of Chaos the motherfucking middle finger before going off to hunt down Nagash. That said, Cetra may well be one of the few mortal beings besides his own servants Khorne has any respect for. He still hates Cetra though. Slaanesh once created some Chaos Space Marines with his hair color scheme, but with armor nicked off fallen Khornate warriors. And when Khorne saw this, his wrath was legendary. Slaanesh and Khorne also have regular plans on Friday night. Sounds of something even bigger than a bloodthirster coming through and much ripping and tearing. No, you're lying. That twat with the chair and Khorne haven't smacked down yet, but Khorne is secretly looking forward to it when it happens. He wants to test Spis might against his own. Tickets are now on sale. If an internet hyperlink comes up red, it's not because the page doesn't exist, it's because Khorne looked at what was once on the other end, and he didn't like what he saw. So much so that the hyperlink is stained with the blood of what once was. Khorne's favorite form of grouping is in Ogdoads, for reasons that should be obvious once you know what that word means. Khorne's favorite vigor is Doom. For obvious reasons. If Khorne is acting calm towards you, don't relax. He doesn't like anything, he just hates some things less than others. There is such a thing as cold hatred. Khorne was almost pleased when Iskander Cairn smashed his ship, the Tlaloc, into the Slaaneshi world of Harmony, killing a whole shitload of Slaaneshi fucks and breaking the planet in half. Then he remembered Cairn was a damn Thousand Sun sorcerer. Fuck, Khorne will not stab you in the back. He will simply stab you in the face until your face stops resembling a face. There is only being to ever earn Khorne's respect, and he is the motherfucking Doom guy.
So I hope you guys have enjoyed. I fucking love 1D4chan. It's a great site. If it wasn't for it, I don't know if I would have gotten back into 40k so easily, because I spent so much time just reading lore and stuff before I even thought about picking up models and, you know, whatever. I just love it. It's written the same way as, like, Dramatic Encyclopedia. It's really good. Though, after doing the 4 Chaos Gods, I might, like, you know, we might keep doing a few of these, like, you know, maybe some favourite characters, that, like, you know, some characters that maybe deserve a wee bit more attention, like, you know, give us some suggestions down below. Like, you know, all the articles are written very well. I really recommend anyone, like, you know, to just get, like, dive in and get stuck in a hole and, you know, just keep going through, because you can spend hours and hours on 1D4chan. It's so good, and they've got articles on everything. I'm not even taking the piss, it really is. It's really well covered. Like, you know, it really is just fucking great, and I couldn't recommend the place anymore to anyone. Although, before I go, I'll need to remind you, definitely click that notification bell to stay up to speed with any further videos, and check out the Discord. There's a lot of fun and Patreon if you really like, you know.
If you haven't already, check out my Redbubble portfolio. You might just find something you like.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is cancer. This is so much cancer that I can feel the tumors growing on my back. And it's way down heavy on me, and it's not okay. Can you help a nigga out and just stop this?